Dear student, welcome you all in online session. In this session, I am going to discuss about designing a case study. And in my previous lecture, I have already discussed about the concept, need and the types of case study. And in present lecture, I am going to discuss about the design of a case study methods. So without further ado, let's start our today's topic. So if we talk about the designing a case study methods, as you can see that the first step is defining the case. This is the first step in designing a case study. Here you identify the person, group or organization and situation you want to study. You need to be clear about what or who the cases is and what makes it unique or interesting. That means the first step is to define the case very clearly. This involves specifying the boundaries of the case, identifying the unit of analysis and determine what will and will not be included in the study. So, first of all, you have to identify the case first. Now, the second step is formulating research questions. Once you have defined the case, you need to ask a specific questions about it. These questions will guide your entire research, your entire study, so it's very essential to get it right. Your research questions should be focused, concise and relevant to the case. In short, we can say that research questions should be specific, focused and aligned with the objective of the study. The questions will guide the data collection and analysis process. After formulating research question, now the next one is selecting case. Case selection is a very crucial, very essential for the success of the study. So now that you have a research questions, you need to choose a case that will help you to answer it. You may have several options, but you need to select the one that best your questions and will provide the most valuable insight. Cases can be selected based on the various criteria such as their uniqueness, relevance and typically, if we talk about the selection of cases, so sampling strategies can be included. So the first one is purposive sampling, selecting cases that are particularly informative, and you can use convenience sampling also. Convenience sampling, that means selecting a case based on ease of access. And you can use theoretical sampling also. Theoretical sampling, that means selecting the cases that are expected to provide the theoretical insight for your research. After selecting the case, now the next step will be the developing a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework is like a lens through which you view your case. It is a set of concepts, theories or ideas that help you to understand the case and make sense of your idea. You need to develop a framework that is very relevant to your case and research questions. That means A theoretical framework provides a lens through which you can easily assess your case and you can examine your case. It guides, it provides the data collection and analysis process and helps in interpreting the findings. And after developing a theoretical framework, you need to plan the data collection. That means the data collection is a very essential, very important step. The data collection plan should detail the types of data to be collected, sources of data, methods of data collection, and procedures for ensuring data quality. There are several ways to collect the data, including interviews, talking to the pupil involved in the cases to gain their insight and perspectives. So after planning the data collections, before you start the collecting data, you need to plan how you will go and how will you do it. This involves the deciding what methods you will use, who you will talk to, and what documents you will analyze, and so on. So you need to be as systematic and thorough in your planning. And after planning of your data collection, the next step will be the data collection methods. That means case studies rely on multiple sources of evidence to provide a comprehensive understanding of the case. Common data collection methods includes like interviews. If we talk about the interviews, so as you can see that interviews are a primary source of data in case of studies. They can be a structured, semi-structured or unstructured depending on the research questions and objectives. If we talk about the structured interviews are the pre-planned and a fixed set of questions to ensure consistency. Now the second one is semi-structured interviews. Use a flexible guide to allow for in-depth explorations. And the last one is unstructured interviews. Unstructured interviews is just like the open-ended and conversational, allow for rich and qualitative data. Now, the second method is observation method. Observation method is a kind of methods like watching what happens in the case to gain a first-hand understanding. So observation involves systematically watching and recording the behavior and the patterns and events. They can be categorized. The first one is direct observation. Direct observation is just like observing events as they occur. Second one is participant observation. The researcher becomes the part of the group being studied to gain a deeper understanding. Now, next one is documented analysis. If we talk about the documents analysis, that means analyzing documents related to the case to gain the historical context and the insight. So documents such as the reports, memo, letters, emails and meeting minutes provide the valuable data. Documents analysis involves reviewing and interpreting these materials to exact relevant information. And after document analysis, the next method is archival records. Archival records include historical documents, databases and records that provides the background and information and context for the case. And the next one is physical artifacts. If we talk about the physical artifacts, that means analyzing the physical objects related to the case to gain the tangible evidence. So physical artifacts such as the tools, device or objects used by the case of subjects can be provide additional insight into the case. And now, next step will be the data analysis. So once you have collected your data, you need to analyze it. So data analysis in case study research involves organizing, interpreting, and synthesizing the collected data to answer the research questions. There are several ways to analyze your data. As you can see that the first one is coding. Coding, that means involves labeling and categorize data to identify themes, patterns and relationships. It can be done manually by using software tools. As you can see that the first one is open coding. Open coding, that means initial broad categorization of data. Excel coding identifying relationship between codes, and selective coding focusing on core categories that are most relevant to the research questions. After coding, the next second method is thematic analysis. If we talk about the thematic analysis, that means identifying the patterns and themes in your data. Thematic analysis involves the identifying, analyzing and reporting patterns within the data. It is a method for identifying the most silenced features of the data. Now, the next one is pattern matching. Comparing your data to expected patterns or outcomes. Pattern matching involves comparing your data, observed patterns with the predicted patterns. It is a strategy for linking data to the theoretical propositions. Now the next method is explanation building. Explanation building, that means creating a logical narrative to explain your findings. Explanation building involves constructing an explanation about the case by revising the theoretical proposition based on the evidence. And next method is time series analysis. Examining changes over the time. Time series analysis involves examine the sequences of events or behavior over the time to identify trends, cycles or the changes. Now the next one is cross-case synthesis. If we talk about the cross-case synthesis, that means comparing multiple cases to identify common themes and the patterns. In multiple case studies, cross-case synthesis involves comparing and contrasting cases to identify differences and make the findings reliable and valid. Now, interpretation of result. Finally, you need to interpret your data which you involves. So, interpreting the result involves understanding the implications of the finding, suggestions, considering the alternative explanation and draw the conclusion based on the evidence. So, there are several types of methods which are given below. As you can see that the first one is triangulations. Triangulations involves using the multiple sources of evidence or multiple methods to collaborate the findings and enhance their credibility, combining the multiple sources of data to increase the accuracy, reliability and validity. And the second one is contextualization. If we talk about the contextualization, it involves the interpreting the findings within the context of the case, considering the specific condition and the circumstances that influence the case. So considering the case's environment and the context. And the next one is generalization. Case studies typically do not aim for statistical generalization. Instead, they aim for analytical generalization where the findings are generalized to theoretical propositions rather than populations. So, applying your findings to the broader situation, this is called generalization. Now, reflexivity. So, reflexivity, it involves reflecting on the research process, the researcher's roles, and the potential bias that may have influenced the findings. In simple terms, we can say that acknowledging your own biases and assumptions and how they may have influenced your study. So, by following these steps, you can design a comprehensive case studies that provides you rich insight and meaningful conclusions. After discussing about the steps designing of case study, next we are going to discuss about the ethical consideration. When conducting research, especially involving human participations, it is very essential to consider ethics to ensure the well-being and the right of those involved. So, ethical consideration is a very essential in a case study to ensure the integrity of the research and the well-being of the participants. So as you can see that the first one is informed consent. This means that participant must be fully aware of what they are getting themselves, purpose, risk and benefits of the research and obtain their consent before proceeding. This ensures they make an informed decisions about the participating. In simple terms, we can say that participant must be fully informed about the purpose of the study, what their participation and any potential risk. They must be agree to participate in. Now the second one is confidentiality. If we talk about the confidentiality, so participant personal information and data must be kept confidential and secret. This means protecting their identity and ensuring that their data is stored securely. You must also explain how you will maintain confidentiality and obtain their consent for their any kind of potential disclosures. So researcher must protect the privacy and of the participants by ensuring that personal information is kept confidential and data will be stored. Any kind of privacy will not be deducted. And if we talk about the next one is minimizing harm, so the researcher must take steps to minimize any potential harm to participate, including the psychological, social and physical risk. That means researchers should never cause harm to participants. You need to consider potential risk, physical or emotional, and take steps to minimize them. This might involve avoiding sensitive topics, providing support, or stopping the researcher if harm occurs. Now, the next one is ethical approval. So, before starting your research, you need to obtain an approval from an ethics committee or institutional review board. They review your research plan to ensure it meets ethical standards and protect participants' rights. So this approval ensures your research is conducted responsibly and with participants' well-being in mind. So Overall, remember ethics is an ongoing consideration throughout the research process. By being mindful of these principles, researcher can maintain the highest ethical standards and conduct responsibilities, participant-centered research. So these are the ethical consideration. We should follow the ethical consideration if we are going to conduct any kind of research. Thank you.